Alright guys, I have no idea what game you're playing, but what on earth is that metallic banana looking thing sticking up from my gun? Look at it! Just look at it! Hi guys, it's DanMinigun again, and today I'll be bringing you the second in the series that I will be calling What the Heck Is. And if you've ever watched Total Biscuit, you will know the reference. As a short digression, I know Total Biscuit sadly passed away this year, or rather last year, and I am still quite bummed out about that. But regardless, today we'll be talking about the Bren Gun. The Bren Gun in real life is actually based on a Czechoslovakian LMG known as the ZB VZ26. It is most famous for its use with British forces, or more accurately, the entirety of the Commonwealth forces, particularly during World War II, where the distinctive banana-shaped magazine has made its appearance in several World War II video games, and is actually a very well-known weapon in popular culture. Despite Britain not having any what we would call general-purpose machine guns during the war, the closest of which would perhaps be the Vickers K, which is in Battlefield 5, the Bren Gun served a role that the MG34 and MG42s could not really do very effectively, and that tactic was marching fire, which involved the user, often accompanied by a sling, using the Bren Gun in aimed sustained fire, without the use of the bipod of course. The gun itself is not that much lighter than an MG34 or MG42, but its ergonomics are far better because the latter weapons simply are not designed to be used on the move, although German doctrine did occasionally call for their use by firing off the bipod, or rather using the bipod as a makeshift grip. Something rather impressive of the Bren, and perhaps also of the much earlier Madsen gun, which is probably what most of you think when you think of a top-mounted magazine, because we've all played Battlefield 1 most probably, is that the Bren Gun actually saw service in many wars after World War II, and the Mark III version even served up till 2006 with the Irish Defence Forces, which is rather impressive. This is largely because of its acclaimed accuracy, which is surprisingly reflected in Battlefield 5, although I cannot attest to how accurate it is, no pun intended, compared to other weapons when you test them. I am not going to go into that. And of course, here I'm speaking of its performance in real life, not in-game, because I will definitely be speaking about the Bren's accuracy in-game. And also that it is a very light and durable weapon. A fun little side note is that the Stoner 63 LMG, which is a weapon that saw service, I'm not sure if it was during the Vietnam War or afterwards, but it saw limited adoption by, in particular, US Navy SEALs, actually came in a variant known as the Bren variant. This is because there are actually legitimate advantages to having a top-mounted magazine. One of them is reliability, where a magazine will be assisted by gravity, and also ease of reloading. When you have a magazine on top, it's actually quite easy to swap out weapons without fumbling around with a weapon, especially a weapon of that weight. Although we speak of these weapons as light machine guns, they're still nowhere as lightweight as, let's say, an assault rifle or a submachine gun. Although nowadays that line is being blurred significantly. So that's enough tidbits about the Bren Gun in real life. I really didn't go into the trouble of going through the entire history of the Bren Gun because it's long and extensive, and really you should be the one that researches that. I will leave some interesting links in the description below. Now let's get to the juicy stuff. What the heck is the Bren Gun in Battlefield 5? Firstly, I'll be starting off a little differently from the MP28 video. This time I will be delving a bit more into the stats, though I will not necessarily be dictating them. And more importantly, there was a comment by Sparky.inc, or rather SparkyInc. where he said that it would be better if I compared it to a similar weapon. I actually agree with this, because at the end of the day, during the MP28 video, I think many people were confused whether or not the MP28 is actually worth using, since there was not much signposting in that video. There are two weapons which I will be comparing the Bren to. They are both LMGs. It is the KA7 specifically with the slow fire rate upgrade, and more importantly the Lewis gun. Why am I comparing these? This is because the KA7 is a 568 rate of fire, whilst the Lewis gun is a 540, and the Bren gun is the lowest of the bunch at 514. The other LMGs are much higher to fire and do not really fall into the niche that the Bren occupies, or even the other weapons. So let's start with the most distinctive feature of the Bren Gun. It's extremely low horizontal recoil. The Bren Gun comes in at an astounding 0.1 and 0.1 to the left and right without any specifications or other specializations. Conversely, the Lewis gun, which fires only a bit faster than the Bren Gun and kills in one more frame, actually has more than double the horizontal recoil of the Bren Gun. The Lewis gun's horizontal recoil is 0.224 to the left and right, which, as I said, is much higher. Why am I focusing so much on horizontal recoil? Well, horizontal recoil, just like in Battlefield 1, determines the accuracy of a weapon in prolonged bursts. Spread also plays a factor, but in Battlefield 5, the LMGs specifically do not have spread increase per shot, but they do have base spread. Just for the record, the base spread on the Bren Gun and Lewis gun is exactly the same at 0.15. Both the Lewis gun and the Bren Gun have access to a decreased horizontal recoil specification, or rather specialization. Again, I keep messing that up. So if you find the horizontal recoil on the Lewis gun to be annoying, you can reduce it, and on the already laser-like Bren Gun, you can bring it down further. I am actually not sure what the value is on the reduced horizontal recoil specification because I couldn't really find it and I couldn't make sense of it just yet. I have a suspicion that it's about 25%. Other than that, they share the same specializations, with the exception that the Lewis gun has a 97 round magazine option, which is a very impressive option, and I would also recommend using that option for the Lewis gun specifically. But this is not about the Lewis gun, it is about the Bren Gun. So we have established that the Bren Gun is far more accurate than the Lewis gun, and this will help you in fully automatic fire, even off the bipod at long ranges. Something interesting is that the vertical recoil on the Bren is very high for a weapon that is very accurate, and I'm only saying this because I'm very used to the Hewitt rifle in Battlefield 1, which had far less vertical recoil than the Bren Gun. I am mentioning the Hewitt because not only is it an awesome weapon and you should always worship it, it is also the closest comparison I can draw to a Hewitt in Battlefield 5. The Bren Gun fires a bit faster, it's easier to reload, has more capacity, but is actually more accurate than the Hewitt horizontal recoil wise and spread wise, but its vertical recoil does mean you will miss shots at long range, because even if your vertical recoil is perfect at very long range, especially with an optic, and I'm speaking like 80-100 meters, you will start to miss shots because of the vertical recoil. Sometimes this can get you extra kills because the vertical recoil actually gets you a cheeky headshot, and this is not something to be underestimated, but I would never recommend relying on vertical recoil increase just to get a headshot. Always aim for the head. And with that being said, the Bren Gun has a select fire option, which the Lewis gun does not have. This is very important in Battlefield 5 because the select fire option actually reduces, well, it reduces the fire rate, which is bad, but this is just to prevent macro abuse. And it also decreases the base spread, meaning that the Bren Gun will become hyper accurate at long range. I find that this mode is best used against campy snipers, especially those which are not looking at you, as fully automatic fire will not only draw attention to you, but the vertical recoil will surely throw you off target and you will actually be at a disadvantage since you will be killing faster with single shots anyway. If you're single shotting, aim for the head, as 3 well-placed headshots at long range will kill a target. So what about the slow version of the KA-7? Well, the KA-7 actually shares the same exact horizontal recoil value as the Lewis gun, which is 0.224 to the left and to the right. The differentiating feature of the KA-7 to the Bren Gun and Lewis gun is that it is a better weapon on the move than the Lewis gun, and more importantly, has a faster fire rate, meaning theoretical time to kill is much lower, especially compared to the Bren Gun. Its specializations are also geared to a more aggressive playstyle, since you can choose the fast move ADS option, which is in-game the light in stock. This makes it very different to the other weapons if you choose this option, because you will be able to move 60% faster while you aim down sight, essentially giving you a more mobile playstyle. Oh yeah, and in case you're wondering, both the KE7 and Lewis gun share the same muzzle velocity of 740 meters per second as the Bren Gun does. However, the Bren Gun has the option of 10% faster velocity, which the other guns do not get. However, I do not recommend picking this option because I would highly recommend the bipod accuracy, since it will help you out a lot if you're bipoding against a sniper. Though an argument can be made that the Bren Gun is accurate enough that the faster velocity may actually be more useful when tracking targets. I myself have no problem with a 740 meter per second velocity. It is just really a matter of, are you used to that muzzle velocity rather than should I pick a higher velocity. I mean, objectively a higher velocity is better, but there is an element of muscle memory and just how much you normally lead. So with the comparisons out of the way, what the heck is the Bren Gun? Well, the Bren Gun is your closest thing to a laser LMG right now when not using the bipod. The Bren Gun has unparalleled full automatic accuracy when compared to other automatic weapons, the closest being the Ribeiros. I will not be considering the SMG since their damage drop-off is much more severe than both the ARs and LMGs. But if you want all-range automatic weapon dominance, the Bren Gun is your choice. However, I said all-range. You will not be competing against most weapons at close range, even if you're a god at headshots, because even in a public game, headshots are quite easy to get in Battlefield 5, and you will be randomly headshotted by new players anyway. However, this does not mean that someone proficient at headshots, rather contradictory to what I just said, will not do well at close range, but I do not recommend it. It is much better to be a proactive player with the Bren Gun than it is to be a reactive player when using something like the FG42 or even the fast-fire KE7 option. The Bren Gun also has no upgrades to its hipfire, so don't bother hipfiring this weapon because its hipfire accuracy is terrible, really. I recommend taking the auto revolver, not that I recommend using any other sidearm at this point, because the auto revolver was buffed to be pretty much the same as Battlefield 1's auto revolver, or rather the Mark 6 revolver, which has a 2 bullet kill to 12 meters now and an extended 3 bullet kill, and also the 1-hit headshot ability, although the hipfire is a bit worse than Battlefield 1, though I suspect that is some sort of reticle issue. But regardless, the Bren Gun should dominate at most ranges. Of course, if you're going up against a sniper and they're looking at you, and you probably know this because they have glint, usually. Unless the game decides not to give you glint, because I noticed something odd with that. You should always be proactive and flank your enemy at range. However, if you're fighting other automatic weapons at range, the Bren Gun can easily dominate them. Of course, I recommend being careful against MMGs, however, MMGs are likely to be prone, and it's quite easy for the Bren to constantly headshot in full auto at range when someone is prone for some reason. So which maps would I recommend the Bren on? I think it would be easier to say which maps I don't recommend the Bren Gun on. In general, I would stay away from it on Devastation, because there are many instances where you'll be forced into close quarters, though you can still do well with it if you're good at headshots in particular, but there are better options like the FG42 for that supportive role. The Bren Gun absolutely dominates on Aerodrome and Hamada, but perhaps it struggles a bit on Fiel, and I could argue parts of RS, especially the town area, where most likely you'll be encountering many medics with higher fire SMGs, such as the Thompson, which will absolutely destroy your day. The 1907 is also a particularly dangerous weapon to be up against, though the Bren Gun absolutely trashes it in terms of accuracy, so you shouldn't have too much to worry about at medium range. So would I recommend the Bren Gun? Well, yes, and a million times yes, it's highly recommended. If you want that Hewitt-like playstyle or even Ben Mercy style playstyle, the Bren Gun is the perfect weapon for you. It excels in many situations, it is highly accurate and is really dependent on the user's proactive ability, and that is the ability to use the map to their full advantage and predict enemy movements. Also, it is very important to not necessarily have good recoil control, though it helps with vertical recoil, because as I said, the horizontal recoil is very low and there is no spread increase per shot on LMGs. I would highly recommend using the Bren Gun for the most part on completely fully automatic mode, like you would do a standard LMG from Battlefield 1, unless that LMG is the Parabellum. So to end on the Bren's role, the Bren is an accurate, fully automatic weapon that absolutely dominates when using it on full auto, has the ability to single shot headshot at range if the situation calls for it, and is generally not recommended at close range, but one can do well with it just as one could do well with a scout rifle at close range if they're good at headshots. But I would not recommend it. Always pick the auto revolver as backup because it's quite frankly the only sidearm that's worth using, and the Bren Gun in particular would benefit a lot from it since it loses a lot of theoretical DPS at close range, where the theoretical DPS at close range is much closer to the actual DPS at close range because there's not much area for spread or recoil to take effect. Oh yeah, and one final thing, when using the Bren Gun in any situation really, I seriously recommend the 3x optic for it. As I mentioned, the Bren Gun is extremely accurate and is very capable at headshotting enemies, and you will definitely make the best use of it, especially at long range, with a magnified optic. Don't bother with the reflex sight, don't bother with the iron sight, just stick the 3x on it, as you can see in my background footage. Keep in mind that the Bren Gun will kill in 4 to 5 to 6 shots, with the 5 shots being the most common, and the 6 shot kill will kick in at long ranges. While it's actually not that long range, the 5 hit kill stops at 50 meters, which is roughly the distance between the White House on Rotterdam and the other side of the street. But that's about it about the Banana Gun, or rather the Bren Gun. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any further feedback, I would love to hear it in the comment section below. Not that the comment section is above this area, but whatever. Please let me know which weapon you would like to pick for the next video, as I would very much like your input rather than what I feel like covering. And if you have any specific feedback on what could be changed in the format of the video, like is it too long for example, which could be, I would very much like to know. Also, a specific piece of feedback is, are you happy with just having mostly voiceovers and no graphics? I am not the best at developing graphics, not that I'm bad at it, it's just simply I don't really have the experience in video editing with Sony Vegas to make or rather more accurately, I just don't have a confident workflow to make such graphics. If you do know how to do these things, please give me a short guide, though I will be looking at these myself anyway. That's about it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next What the Heck Is.